So now let me introduce the next speaker. And next speaker is Maciej Otrębski, and he is responsible for strategic partnership with the business campaign Groschinieme. He cooperates with food industry entrepreneurs, provide consulting services, and help companies to understand the massive consumers' interest in plant-based products. He will discuss also how to turn authorities and those in charge of decision into our allies. So, yeah, if you're ready, you can start.
Yeah, Marian, thank you for a very warm introduction. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here this year as a speaker, but also as an attendee. I've been listening to some talks, and thanks, Brett, for your previous presentation. I think it made you made some valid points, and actually, I got the feeling that it makes a good base for my presentation as well. So maybe we'll help it out to move swiftly from yours to our to what I have to say. And yeah, just a brief introduction. My name is Maciej Otrębski, as Marian said, and I'm representing Groschinieme, which is a campaign run by Otwarte Klatki, Open Cages, which is one of the biggest or most active animal rights group in Poland. Otwarte Klatki are Anima International member. And yeah, just maybe a few words about Groschinieme, since yeah, you might not be that familiar with the project that I'm behind. Yeah, Groschinieme, a tongue breaker probably for everyone here, except from my Polish colleagues. Groschinieme is a campaign that sort of works to make that plant-based trend a mainstream thing within the food industry, and we do that through various corporate outreach activities, doing research, consulting companies, hosting conferences, doing various rankings, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of stuff happening. The campaign has started like 5 or 6 years ago, and it was sort of pivoted in 2018 into a project that I just described, as previously it was mostly focused on more of a restaurant outreach where we are trying to encourage local restaurants to introduce plant-based options. Now we're sort of focused on food industry, so all the big scale businesses, and making the plant-based change, plant-based momentum to be grasped by those big companies that actually shape the way we eat, as we believe. And yep, the topic of today's conversation, the talk that I prepared, is becoming allies with food industry authorities. And yeah, we'll get to all of that. But before that, I was thinking like why actually we are talking about it during the animal rights conference. So I think like everyone here could align with what I wrote in the slide that you can see. So we're all probably trying to achieve a food system with less suffering or free of suffering. I mean, like animal suffering. We all would like to see meat consumption reduction on the consumer level, and yeah, we would all like to see plant-based foods becoming a default choice for many, and would like plant-based foods to become a mainstream thing, both on the supply and demand side. So yeah, that's what we're trying to achieve, and that's why we're talking about food industry and people who run it. Yeah, next 30 minutes or so, we'll briefly talk about some background. So the foods, the norms and the preferences, authorities and trendsetters, so people who are actually running the food industry. I will also try to dive into what I see as like seeing plant-based activists or animal rights activists seeing how do we see food industry and what our role could be. And yeah, to visualize our role better, I will try to present a couple of case studies from Polish playground, and after, well, there will be some space to discuss like what we've learned. Maybe you have some good learnings to share as well. Yeah, so again, what we're trying to achieve, food system with less suffering, smaller meat consumption, or essentially a vegan world. That's hard. And yeah, plant-based foods going mainstream. So if you would think about it from a broader perspective, where essentially we want to change some sort of norm. The norm is now that eating meat is a regular thing, right? Like it's what's socially accepted and so on and so forth. Yeah, I also use the Oxford reference, just as Brett, to find a good good definition of what social norm is, and you can read it. But the main thing that stands out is that the social norm makes a common standard within a given social group regarding what is socially acceptable or appropriate in a particular social situations. And yeah, basically, I will later on go into how we can translate those that social norm into the food industry context. We're not going to talk about individual or consumer change, but this could also obviously apply to that as well. Yeah, many of you probably had made a lot of reading or some reading on changing social norms, since that's what we're essentially trying to do. I did some brief reading as well. I'm not really a bookworm, but yeah, I've read and listened to some podcasts about changing social norms, and Christina Bicchieri is the one that is an expert that I would totally recommend to dig into. And she made a very good point on what affects our decision making and the whole process. So the thing that affects our decision making are preferences, and there are two types of preferences. One of them is unconditional, so the preferences that are not influenced by what others expect from me or what I expect from others. And the other type of preference is what is a conditional type of preference. So what I expect from others and what others would expect from me. And for that presentation and for that talk, we're going to focus on the sphere that is related with conditional preferences. So how those preferences can be shaped by different actors, different situations, values, cultures, contexts. If you think about it, one of the things that shapes the choices of individuals is what other people do, as we're social animals, and also especially the choices are like people really look up to the people who they find important to them, people who they value, who they respect, who they see essentially as authorities. And yeah, if you try to translate it to our playground for today and for our work in Poland and for work of any campaigner that is working within the corporate outreach work, our playground is food industry. So yeah, if you think about norms in the food industry, probably that is the one of the norms. So meat as the center of the plate, as a core protein source, that things could be considered as socially acceptable within that food industry as a normal thing. And yeah, we're trying to change that. And if you think about who is behind those norms, the answer comes sort of clear. You might think about entrepreneurs, like food businessmen, directors from food companies, chefs, maybe people who are doing research. You would probably also consider consumers somewhere there, but the big players, as I said, like C-level people, are sort of shaping the direction where the food industry goes. And those people also happen to have an authority, I would say. They are well respected in a given group. The big ask would be, are authorities the trendsetters? And we'll get to who trendsetters are in a second. So with our approach, we're sort of thinking how to change the norm of meat being the central protein source within authorities. So how to reach those authorities to speak in our name. And if you think about it, not every authority is necessarily a trendsetter, if you think, because trend setting is risky in one way, and might not be always the easiest decision to sort of collapse or to sort of stand against a given norm. And that's where we come in. Any plant-based activists, people who want to sort of change the status quo of a norm in a food industry. And what I see is not like one of my favorite tactics is not to make ourselves to be seen as authorities, but use or amplify the voices of people who are already authorities to become our voice, to give them our voice and to have them speak as our ambassadors. We want them to essentially become the plant-based trendsetters. And in fact, it's us who are the trendsetters. We are the ones who have lower risk threshold. So we are the ones that are ready to change the status quo, and we are the ones who already see the future that looks different that what is given today. And yeah, it's the hardest thing is to sort of make those people who are not that eager to take risk to stand against the given norm to become our allies, as I said in the title of the presentation. And one of the strategies that I found works quite well is that you don't necessarily have to go full speed ahead at those authorities. So you wouldn't expect people who are quite rooted in a social norm of eating meat to go fully vegan, or ask other companies to go vegan and so on, to speak in favor of plant-based products. So what we've been trying to do in Poland is to sort of have that that sort of filter that softens the message and can help us to find a common ground with given authority. And this could be very various things. And I will show that in a second when we get to the cases. Yeah, so it's not us who are the authorities, it's us that are the trendsetters, and we want the authorities to become the plant-based trendsetters for us, sort of speaking in our name. I also coined another term, just as Brett in his presentation, and I would like to think of plant-based outreach activists as a sort of background trendsetters, whispering the words of wisdom to food entrepreneurs, to managers, to chefs, and getting them on our end. And yeah, it's a challenging thing, but once you get the right momentum, you can sort of be that person who stands in the back and builds partnerships and get people to spread your message, which I think works great to sort of build the legitimacy, credibility of the plant-based messaging, or like shaking the norm essentially, or working to change it. Yeah, and let me just look at the time, 15 minutes, I'm doing great, hopefully. So we are the ones like just being in the back, spreading the words of wisdom, of the plant-based wisdom, to those who are in power, if you can say that. So yeah, if you are a chef working in a food industry, and you are quite meat-based chef working in a restaurant that is specialized with meat, would you trust this guy, or would you see this guy as an authority? Probably not really. Probably no one from the food industry, especially the chef community, would be eager to listen to that person, which happens to be me, talking about how cool plant-based burgers can be, or how big is the market opportunity within the plant-based sphere. But if you look at this guy or this woman, Marzena Hein, you'd think that they are probably quite a bit more trustworthy towards the chef community, because they are firstly, they are insiders. Secondly, they are respected. Like both of those chefs work in quite renowned restaurants in Warsaw and in Poznań in Poland, and they also happen to be the ambassadors of the project that we are running called Chefs for Change. And yeah, I think it's very important to say that both of those people are not vegans or vegetarians. They are working in like regular restaurants, and yeah, they would probably 2 or 3 years ago, they wouldn't be like very interested in preaching about, or like rather than preaching, endorsing plant-based eating. But with the soft approach that we created with the project that we're running, Just for Change, we sort of managed to encourage them to act as our ambassadors and spread the plant-based wisdom or the plant-based messaging within their own communities. They are like, even if they are not using like the brand of Groschinieme or whatever, they are they are oftenly publicly endorsing plant-based eating. When meeting with other chefs, well, in various situations, those people became our ambassadors, and they have a great role because it's not us speaking about what's important to change the food system, change the way we eat, but it's them. So we can sort of have a very credible message addressed at chefs community. So I really like that campaign and project. We actually today Just for Change just launched internationally. If you are interested in that, I will ask if Veronica, if you're here, please link all the necessary stuff to follow that project. And let's go to the next case. Everyone from Poland will now have a very cute moment, since it's the person that everyone loves, not only chefs love. It's Robert Makovic. He's like the ultimate food authority in Poland. And we got to work with him to endorse the Chefs for Change project. And it's a double win, because he does not only has a lot of respect within a professional community, but he's also loved by like I said, literally everyone in Poland. And having him to be our ambassador, our ally, is a huge win for animals, for plant-based eating, and for making the meat-free diet, or at least plant-forward diet, so the diet that is rich in plant ingredients, more normalized. He often expresses how much he doesn't like the actual animal farming as well. So that's a side win. And what's also interesting about Robert Makovic, that he's also actively engaged in cage-free work. He endorsed our cage-free campaign as well. So yeah, it's I think my presentation can also be translated to some welfare campaigns as well, if you look at Robert Makovic case. Yeah, the next one is pretty interesting. The quote that you can see here, especially the part that is that I marked red, is particularly interesting, since it's not written by anyone from Groschinieme. It's written by a company who just launched a plant-based mayo. And I will just read it for those who maybe are only listening. Traditional brands not only can, but also should respond to contemporary challenges, which is respond to the plant-based trend. And that quote has been published in various industry media, and the person who said it is the managing director of WSP Społem, which is one of the biggest companies producing mayo in Poland, and I think like the first company that ever produced mayo. So they are like a very traditional brand, and we work with them to introduce the plant-based version of their traditional mayonnaise. And imagine let's think about other CEO from a company that produces mayo or whatever, any other food product. If they would read that message that I would write, or anyone from our team would write, they would probably just ignore it. But if a person who is actually the director of a very, very traditional brand comes up with a very strong statement. If you can see also, like they say that something we strongly believe in, it sort of makes it work, makes other reconsider what they are doing. And again, like if you get back to the norms and the preferences, this actually actively influences how other brands, other businesses see the plant-based market. It's I think it's essential to get such traditional companies to become our allies in that work of changing the norm. And yeah, the next thing is, let me just look at the timing. It's quite okay. Is that it's not only about chefs and like food entrepreneurs, but it's also about getting external experts who are well regarded by the food industry community or food industry in general to become our allies. Let me just see. Sorry. So yeah, every time we get to publish a report or a ranking, or we sort of go out in the media, what we're trying to do is to strengthen our message with inviting external experts, again, well regarded in the community, to speak about the message that we carry. In that case, we partnered with Honorata Jarocka from Mintel. Mintel is, I think, one of the biggest research companies in the world, and Honorata is I think like one of the best food and drink researchers in Poland. And in that report that we published, she provided her commentary, which gave an extra credibility to that. And furtherly, she also hosted a webinar with us, which again, like helped us to reach people or actually companies who probably would be less likely to join our webinar if it was hosted by only by someone from our team. But with her, we got actual meat companies, dairy companies, and other like really big businesses from Poland to participate in what actually her and us what we had to say. So again, she was speaking in our name. And now just a brief stop because I thought that it all might look cool, but also might look quite difficult to reach those authorities, entrepreneurs, and so on. So a short story about our relationship with Honorata. It all started from a LinkedIn message where I wasn't connected with her at all. I didn't have any reference to reach out to her. I just simply wrote her a message inviting her to a conference, and it turned out that she was interested. And from then on, we're in touch, and she's been supporting our work, even though she doesn't have to. So that's really cool. And I will have a word on Honorata as well in a second. But yeah, what I'm also thinking is that if you consider authority, you don't always necessarily have to talk about like actual people or actual people who have that authority role. But what I also see as an valid way to push our messaging in the right direction, the direction that we want to reach that specific group and sort of shake the norm that is the one that we want to change, is also good to look towards give specific projects, media outlets that would sort of validate our message. And to describe that better, I have a screenshot. I like taking screenshots. Yeah, so I think like half a year ago, we started thinking about making a video series about entrepreneurs who stepped into plant-based sphere and were quite successful so far and were expanding their business and so on and so forth. And we're thinking that it would be cool to sort of present them to the broader audience of entrepreneurs or of people who might have money, who might want to, might not know yet, but might be interested in hearing more about such success stories about entrepreneurs in the plant-based sphere. And yeah, while we could, of course, prepare a video, post it via Groschinieme channels, and we would probably reach quite a solid number of meat reducers, flexitarians, a lot of vegans probably as well, and some businesses as well, of course. We thought that it actually would make sense to sort of amplify and validate our message with some external actor who is perceived as a authority again, or as a how to say, like, who is well perceived in the entrepreneurs community. And we made a list of people or projects who would be who would make a good fit to endorse what we are trying to do. And again, like Forbes, which you can see here on a screenshot, was on our list, and we reached out to them. We had some prior connection because they asked us for a comment on a previous project, but it was not a very like deep relation, deep relationships, and we just asked them offering a project about plant-based entrepreneurs, and we were just interested if they would be eager to put it on their media channels, on their website, and so on. And apparently they agreed, which was which made my day back then a very happy day. And so far we've posted 2 videos. As you can see, the latest one, it reached 140,000 views on Facebook, and it was also published on their website. And again, like here you see that Forbes is a media that serves as our authority and reaches a very particular community of people who are business minded, right? The cool thing was that with the first video that we published, they got so interested in the company that was featured. It was the plant-based yogurt maker company, that they also conducted an interview with them that was then published in print. So it again reached the core audience that we wanted to reach. So that sort of work helps us to amplify the trend with an authority that became our ally. And if you can see here, we're somewhere in the background. We're not presented in the first perspective. If you dive in deeper, you would find that like we made the video, but it's Forbes who published it, and they made our messaging valid. So yeah, with those cases that I presented and like that approach of building partnerships, becoming allies with food authorities and business authorities, I think I came up with couple of learnings that I got from those and some other projects that we've been doing with various people. And I think that most important thing is that human-to-human interaction. So sometimes we happen to, I think like that we happen to forget that we're actually working with humans, and those authorities are also humans, human beings who have feelings, who like some certain things, who sometimes are tired, sometimes are happy, and so on, so on, so on, just as we are. So every time I'm thinking about a given authority and how to reach such person, I would approach that person as a human, and I would also try to not be the most official person and not the most stiff person ever. I would just act as I would do with if I would meet a given person on the street, or I don't know, like if I would meet a potential friend. And so far, this has proven to work. Of course, you need to adapt your messaging a bit depending on the people that you are reaching out to. But I just really like that human touch to communication. And that also leads to the second thing, which is giving and getting. So yeah, to build a long-term and like to basically get those people who we want to reach, sometimes it's better to take a bit of a backside approach. So if you see Honorata, I offered her to speak at the conference. If you see Forbes, we offered them to provide a lot of quality content for their website. If you see Kielecki, the Mayo company, we gave them some consulting. So and you can always like find a way to give. For Chefs for Change, we're giving those chefs, those food professionals, some extra publicity, some recognition in the community as well. So we have that sort of approach that sometimes you have to give, and you have to give sincerely. It's not again like a human, and then maybe you're getting something in return. And sometimes not, sometimes yes. And both of the above also get to the long-term relationships. So a lot of those projects happen because we are staying in touch with people. We are staying in touch with chefs. We are staying in touch with other food authorities like Honorata, like that we work on various projects, and we are when something cool happens in our campaign, we're letting those people know to celebrate with us. And I think it's quite essential if you are willing to use their voice to speak in our name long term, to be the plant-based ambassadors of our cause. I think it's essential to get them on board and simply care about them, right? It's not that hard, and sometimes we're also failing. One extra thing that I would like to underline is that among those food authorities, we might find a lot of silent allies of our cause. And what I mean by silent allies is that it might turn out that a person who you are reaching maybe is already a vegetarian, or just started reducing meat, or maybe follows your campaign, or has a sister or has someone in the family who is adapting to a plant-based lifestyle. So those people might be our silent allies, and and working with them is like a total pleasure, and it's like a golden spot if you manage to find them. Sometimes it happens naturally, especially during conferences. If you meet other people, you learn a lot about them as well. And during the pandemics, it's a bit harder, but it's also possible. So remember about that. And yeah, just a quick wrap up. Let me see the timing. Okay, I'm almost done. Yeah, so we're on a mission to change social norms, and it's hard and it's a long way to go, and changing norms within the food industry is super hard, but with food authorities on our end, we might achieve what we're working towards a bit faster or a bit more effectively. And yeah, it's quite possible, considering the given lessons, the learnings that we got from our partnerships, but also trying new approaches, as well as I'm sure that there are many other ways to reach to the authorities. Of course, we're facing a lot of challenges. Food industry is one, and we're not like there's like so much work to do and so much companies, businesses, authorities to reach. So we're focusing on that. What we're thinking and what I would like to hear more about in the future, also from maybe you have some good comments, are the government officials to embrace a more just food system. That's the work that we would like to do more, and would like to get involved in that as well. And I think the mechanism could be similar. And yeah, if you are already working in the plant-based outreach, I would like to, and probably you have been going through similar challenges as we did, but if not, maybe there could be some sort of homework for you, and that would be simply answering or listing down answers to those two questions, like who are the food authorities in your country, and what to make them, what are the steps to make them become our allies and speak in our favor. And yeah, I'm coming back from, like, my background is hardcore punk community, where I've learned to actually that I had to talk with people and had to make sort of friendships, or if you translate it now to business, make partnerships with different people that were new to me. And that is a picture of one of my favorite bands, and they have that, like, the band is called Youth of Today, and they have that song called Potential Friends. And I think, like, if you take that approach, that we could be potential friends with food authorities, I think there's a lot to win. And yeah, I think it's always better to go together and to get more people on our end, even if they are not going 100% in a direction that we are believing, but they might still endorse our messaging. So I would love to hear about your ideas, your wins, your strategies. Let's talk. My email is here, and I think I can stop screen sharing. And yeah, if there are any questions, yeah, I'm happy to try to answer them if I'm competent enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for presentation. We already have like many questions. So
cool.
The first one is, how do you go about getting direct contact to trendsetters? And how do you prepare to talk with them? How does the actual first contact look like?
Mm-hmm. Great question. Thanks for that. So yeah, it's always a tricky question. But the bottom line is messaging them on LinkedIn, and that really turns out to work. Our partnership with Honorata is a great case, but I've contacted a lot of people through LinkedIn that later on became our partners that we got to work, or they spoke in our favor. So I'm a big LinkedIn fan. That's one thing. The other thing would be, again, like giving and getting. When you have something to offer, it's always a bit easier to get someone's attention. If you're asking for something, it's a bit less likely that you will get a reply. So that sort of mechanic of giving and getting, I think it's quite important to embrace. And yeah, like just being open to building new relations. Like I said, like we could be potential friends. Have that in the back of your head, even if those people are out of our bubble, like, and contacting them is out of our comfort zone. These are still people, and shooting them a kind email or a kind message on LinkedIn does a great job. Like a small tip, again, like with LinkedIn, is that you can always connect with a lot of people, and there's that small space for a note, and you can do a lot of magic with giving a very like adding some cool points to that short note, which is I think like 200 characters, but that works. So again, like kindness, but like not being afraid to reach people who you think that might not be interested in replying to you, and giving and getting could be the tips. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Another question, what's the motivation of the authorities, people or companies you work with? Do you approach them from the animal health, trend, or climate perspective?
Any of those, apparently. Well, like those things are coming somewhere in the background, but we're always talking about business opportunity, showing them what's so it could be a bit of a trend perspective, or rather like what we're now using is rather talking about a trend. We're talking about a solid customer segment that is growing. So again, it's more of a business-oriented talk, and that happens to work quite well. Of course, giving a lot of, like, what works is again giving something. So in Poland, we like researching stuff. We like digging data, making I don't know, like newsletters, overlooking what's happening in the plant-based world, essentially. And if you can deliver some know-how, some knowledge to a company, it's always some sort of value to your outreach, because you're not coming and saying, hey, you should introduce plant-based mayo, but hey, there's that segment, it's growing here and there. Your similar companies in Czech Republic already do that, so you better look at it before you miss your chance. So yeah, if that's a brief reply, that could be it.
Yes, I think so. We are running out of time, but
Yeah.
the next there will be like a coffee break, so maybe we can ask one or two more questions. If anyone have another program, feel free to leave. And another question is, just a second. Yeah, I think you already answer some of these in the previous one, but what sort of the message do you ask authorities to spread? And what do you offer them in return, which you already, I think, mentioned? So maybe what kind of message do you ask authority to spread?
Well, like we're always trying to get them to speak about how big the plant-based market is going to be. Well, it depends on a given group that we want to reach. If we want to, like if we're talking about chefs, for example, one of my favorite messages is actually from the person that you had seen on the slide. Was like he was the one who said so that the times where you could laugh off vegetarians and vegans in your restaurants are long gone, and it wasn't us who asked him to tell that, but he made that very bold statement during one of the presentations that he was giving for chefs, or like I don't remember, but we're not necessarily putting words in someone's mouth. We're just giving them, like we're giving them background to actually speak in our name and to understand the trend better and to speak in our favor. Yeah.
Okay. And I would say the last question,
Mm-hmm.
do you sometimes resign from partnership? How do you know when it doesn't make sense or when someone is too conservative to get on board with plant-based ideas?
Well, like those companies are the hardest to work with, like, or those authorities. So of course sometimes you will face a wall, and it might be different reasons for that. Like, for example, I was trying to get to a conference that is like a mid-conference, and the organizers were like, I had a very good conversation with them, but they were afraid that I'm behind, that the open cages is behind Groschinieme. And well, like the idea was to use the conference as that sort of authority, right, to speak about plant-based trend. And I couldn't work around it. In the end, they invited Makovic from Poland, so that was also cool because we got the topic covered anyway. Well, like again, like we're always trying to identify the people who are open to conversation, and they have to be at least a bit more open to take that risk of trend setting, as I talked in my presentation. Yeah, that would be the bottom line. Like, you know, sometimes you just cannot turn someone into your authority. Just we're trying to identify the people who are in a way progressive, or at least a bit progressive in their thinking.
Yeah. So just be aware that there is sometimes a wall, but
yeah.
Okay. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sticking out for that long. And I also posted my LinkedIn profile, so always happy to connect via LinkedIn, the best source to connect, the best way to connect. And thanks everyone for listening and sticking out. Cheers. Thank you.